A wildfire is an uncontrolled fire that rapidly spreads across land, consuming everything in its path, from trees, vegetations, and even human infrastructures.
My name is Christine Camacho Farron. I'm the Forestry and Soil Resources Division Chief for your Guam Department of Agriculture.
My name is Adalyn Omalau. I'm the Cooperative Fire Protection Program Manager at the Forestry and Soil Resources Division. I define a wildfire as an uncontrolled fire in wildland vegetation. Could be in our forests or grasslands.
This is it, but also important note, wildland fire, wildfire. Specifically, the desired goal is to put that fire out. It's a wildfire having had intention to destroy, right? It's an uncontrolled, uncontained fire.
All wildfires on Guam are caused by people, whether it's accidentally or purposely, they are human caused. I think the most common scenario would be like people trying to clear their yard from the debris, and maybe the weather for that day is unpredictable, and when they burn their debris, it carries off and becomes this uncontrollable fire in the wildlands.
A number of our wildfires on Guam we have those escaped backyard fires, as Asia described, and then we also have intentionally set fires. And so arson for the sake of arson. And you get people who will say, oh, those hunters out there. But real hunters don't burn. You know, a real hunter won't burn because our hunters are also our fishers. And by burning, we're destroying habitat, which is needed by our wildlife, and we're destroying watershed health and integrity, which our fisheries really need for clean soil, for clean rivers and water and corals, and which promotes greater fishing. So we would never justify this by saying it's a hunter. It's arson, and it's an arsonist who's intentionally setting these fires. And also, youth starts. Let's not leave that one out. The curious child, youth starts, people playing with fire. It's basically negligent burning and criminal mischief.
While these fires are devastating to the environment, they also have significant economic impacts, damaging crops, destroying homes, and affecting tourism, a critical part of Guam's economy.
I think the climate models projected in this area foresee greater drought conditions, and with more drought conditions means better conditions for starting fires, so more frequent fires, more intense fires.
For the destructive behavior of fire, we can see something pretty devastating for the island. We have primed conditions during dry season, which means less precipitation, vegetation and ground and soil drying up, which means once we get a fire going, once there's an ignition and you get enough wind and enough fuel on the ground, which is the vegetation, that can move it all across the landscape. And if families aren't prepared by preparing their properties during dry season, that means bush cutting protective areas, protective barriers, which we call fuel breaks, sometimes fire breaks. And that just removes vegetation that can carry fire right up to their doors.
So welcome back to the National Weather Service Office. I'm Landon Idlet, the warning coordination meteorologist, and the big theme today is the wildfire threat. We've had over a week of red flag warnings, which means that we are in very high or extreme fire danger conditions, and so we're not forecasting fires, but we are forecasting the conditions for critical fire danger and rapid spread of fires. And so what I want to talk to you about today is we have a lot more wind out there. And so those winds have been kicking up, and right after 10 o'clock, we started seeing something that's not moving like the rest of these showers over here, and that's that plume right there in south central Guam. That's a wildfire. And so right after 10 o'clock, we saw that first little indicator of something that could be an object in the atmosphere close to the surface, and then it just stayed. So we look for those single point sources that are stationary. We note that it's coming from something on the ground, and then we watch that plume expand, and so at that point we know we have a wildfire. And so the big concern today is we have a lot more wind. We have wind gusts upwards of 30 miles per hour here at the airport, and probably much higher wind gusts in the mountains. But again, very dry out there, just 0.3 of an inch of rain so far this month in the first 13 days of the month, and very dry this year.
Catastrophic fire is always a risk. will always be a risk. But the potential for full community ablaze, and I will never minimize the risk, but I can say that we have really good building codes, and as long as those codes aren't altered in a way that diminishes the strength and integrity, then we have a much better chance at protecting ourselves against those types of fires.
According to the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, wildfires on Guam have increased in frequency and severity in recent years.
For your window, just stats.
The only thing I can recall is that we have wildfire statistics or mapping conducted by the Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization. They've mapped from 2015 to 2024. I think also this year too. And with the mapping effort, they record like when the burn happened, how large it was, and not just for Guam, but the entire Micronesian region. And it's, I think it's publicly accessible for free. And it comes with annual statistics of each burn per class. And I think the annual percentage burned on Guam is roughly 4% of the total land. In 2024, I can recall we had them, like it was a 6% total land area burned on Guam. Compared to like the US, I think they would usually be less than 1% total land area burned. So Guam proportionally has a lot larger impact by wildfires compared to the continental US.
For percent area.
Area.
And to elaborate, when we talk about class sizes, that's the class size that we are given to categorize our fires. And so the U.S. Forest Service has, we have this fact sheet or this data sheet that we populate, and class sizes go from like 0 to maybe like 1 acre, 5 acres, 9 acres. And then there's these huge, after 9 acres, then it's 10 acres to 20 acres. And so in there, these are the class sizes that we talk about. And so the average class size that we run into are these smaller, like 2 acre, 1 acre, 2 acre size fires. These are the average as far as like the greatest number of fires are occurring in that smaller class category, which leads us to believe that when you look at the data and how these fires may have started, they run between what we call hot sets, like sets, not just a hot set, but testing. So an arsonist testing small patches of vegetation, checking to see if it's ready to burn, if it's dry enough. Those are the small patches that we see. And then in addition, it's also those backyard fires where a little bit of fire crept out from their burn pit and burned the vegetation around before it was contained. So there's quite a story to tell when we look at the fire mapping. If we get an intern one day or someone who wants to study, like, oh wow, where are these ignitions coming from? And we have our investigators, the staff, they are trained on wildland fire investigation. And so we do go out and investigate the fires that trigger certain things for us, because there aren't enough of us and there are a lot of fires on the island. And so we've run years where we've had about anywhere from, I want to say 800 fires reported in fire mapping. And so the fire mapping, as Asia mentioned, started in 2015, and that was a contract with the Forest Service and our friend named Julian Dundee. And he did the mapping from 2015 to 2021 or 22, and then Hawaii Wildfire took on the effort when he moved on to a different job, and they resumed the fire mapping for us. So yeah, it is all free, it is all available. And we do use that to present this very real issue. We have a lot of fires on Guam. What does that mean? Well, let's go back and look at the maps, and you can look at individual years and see those burn scars across the landscape. And then you put them all up, you open them all up at the same time, and you see that they occur relatively in the same spots every year. And then we have new sites popping up because now we have vehicle fires. We have more fires occurring now in the north than we've had in the past. So it's interesting to see the trends, these stories. I'm not going to say trends yet. I don't think we're at a point where we're seeing a trend other than, well, these are all sort of being burned. But let's see.
Addressing wildfires requires coordinated efforts from all sectors of society, government, emergency services, and the community. The Guam government has developed response strategies, but challenges remain in effectively managing and mitigating the risks associated with wildfires.
The Guam Department of Agriculture, Forestry, Soil, and Division, they typically manage a lot of the wildland fires. And as far as a response, emergency response, the Guam Fire Department will come out and support that effort, combat wildland fires. Department of Forestry also provides public education with regard to wildland fire mitigation and maybe fuel reduction in subdivisions or homes, where they provide education as far as reducing the amount of fuel, combustible fuels around their homes. A lot of the vegetation around homes, we try to maintain a buffer around these, what they call defensible spaces, to be able to protect your home. And then again, giving alerts out to our people on the roads to just be aware that there may be a fire in certain areas. So we try to, again, put out those PSAs to ensure that our community is safe when we're operating and mitigating these wildland fires. In respect to individual fire companies, every unit is responsible for safety, and so their officer in charge, all their crew members, everybody's responsible for safety. When we start to stand up a incident command system, we'll put a safety officer in place, and that safety officer will go out to all these units just to make sure that everything that they do is an operation of safety, being the number one priority.
Training and preventions are critical in reducing the risk of wildfires. Local agencies have implemented programs to educate the public and train first responders on how to prevent and manage a fire before it escalates.
All right, so today we're here at the National Weather Service Field, T's in Barrigada, and today we have the 24th fire cycle, the Guam Fire Department training. We have about 15 recruits that we're training. Today's training is wildland fire, just a component to the other requirements in the training of the Fire Academy. So this training process in wildland fire starts with 3 days in the class at GCC. Today is actually the 4th day of their training, which is the practical portion. In the practical portions, we showcase a lot of the different hand tools that we utilize in wildland firefighting, and then kind of show them how we deploy these equipment in the different types of attack, direct or indirect, in wildland firefighting. Kind of discuss some of the methods that we utilize to contain and control fire with the typical equipment that we carry in the Guam Fire Department. So other than the hand tools, because we're a fire department, we typically would run hand lines to perform direct fire attack. We show them 1.5 inch and 1 inch deployment of these hoses, how to build a progressive pack, and we kind of built it in a way where it's a little bit complicated. So as they deploy in this wet evolution, the complexities with the number of limited amount of equipment in the bag, they'll be able to put together, connect as to extend a firefight. So there's a lot of problem solving as a team of 3 in deploying and extending these hand lines in this part of the exercise or training. So again, we have the recruits here. There's about 5 squads that we kind of broke them into, where a 3-man team would work together to deploy the attack lines.
So it goes on, it might not always be the right reducer, so we'll get some leakage, right? Remember, when we're starting to deal with wildland firefighting situations, we might not have the luxury of a water source nearby, right? So we want to conserve as much as possible. So even when we're fighting, right, if we're not engaged, if there's no hot spots here, we'll just shut off for a period of time and we'll move on to the next. But for today's iteration, obviously we wanted you to get used to that, right? And then make a hole. And then obviously when we're going, right, fighting, right, wet all around. Every time I'm going, if I'm going to go on a path, move over mass, say this is my path, right, what you guys were doing. As I'm fighting all the hot spots, I wet in front of me, wet in front of me, double tap, wet, wet, wet. Wet in front of me, wet in front of me. All right? Simply move that stuff over, do that, without even using water. That's a similar concept with the brush beating. When we're brush beating, we want to dampen that fire out, stomp on it, whatever the case might be. Now it's not going anywhere. Indian pack, same thing we just did, but with an Indian pack, limited source, pump like a super soaker, that kind of thing, and then we kill it, right? So remember, just because we have water doesn't mean that's the only way we kill the fire. Simply removing the fuel from that, from the heat, from the elements, by removing it, we stop the path of water. That's why we have those fire breaks, right? When we talked about fire breaks, if you simply remove the fuel, it doesn't have anywhere to go, thus eliminating the fire. Make sense?
While wildfires pose an undeniable threat to Guam, the efforts of the community, government, and first responders offer hope. Together, we can create a safer, more resilient future, one where prevention, education, and quick responses help protect our homes, our environment, and our way of life.